guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are going to review something that I've already actually reviewed, but it's a newer, updated version, and it's something that actually was pretty popular on my channel a little while back, and it is this guy. This is the newest version of what I called the Crazy Papo Knockoff Spinosaurus. Now this thing is pretty much a mix of a Papo Baryonyx and the Papo Spinosaurus. Some crazy Chinese bootleggers decided to make this insane dinosaur mix, pretty much a hybrid, but they market it as just a Spinosaurus. Now if you do remember, I had reviewed another version of this which had quite a few problems to it that were a little disheartening, because honestly the overall look of this thing in my opinion is very, very cool. It is an awesome looking Spinosaurus, maybe not the most scientifically accurate, but I think that the entire look of it is quite awesome. And the earlier one had a little bit of a flashier paint scheme, and we'll actually bring him in right now to look at. It is this one. Now I actually am going, oh, I knocked him over. I'm gonna have to hold him up because one of the issues with the earlier version is that it had balancing problems, because if you look at the feet are pretty bowed, they're kind of warped. I'm not really sure why. I don't know if everybody's was like that, if when anyone else had ordered this, if their feet had the same problem, but mine are definitely quite warped and he does not balance well at all. There we go, we got him to stand. Thank God. This little area here is very off level. You can see looking at him, he had a brighter paint scheme, definitely a more ridiculous paint scheme, I could say. Not so much a realistic looking paint scheme. The white lines that kind of just squiggle all down the body were a little weird, and but overall, I mean, I really like the coloration on him for the most part, minus the crazy white lines and stuff. I love the coloration of the face, but this one had, like I said, a few issues to it, like the fact that the teeth were pretty sloppily painted, the eyes were terribly painted, they looked absolutely awful, and the balancing issue, like I had mentioned before, it's kind of bowed on the legs. But this one overall I really did like. I thought he was quite awesome. And now there's this version, and I honestly like this version a lot more than the other one, simply because I feel like the coloration on this one is much more realistic. It is much more natural looking. It's kind of a plain blah, some people might say, type of a paint scheme, but because it looks more real to me, I like him more. I feel like the overall paint scheme on this is done much better than the other one too. The other one was pretty sloppy. It looked like it was painted. This one looks more like a natural type of a look, maybe a real animal type of a paint scheme on this thing, and I really like it because of that. And one of the issues that on the other one that was a big problem for me was how sloppy the eyes looked, and the eyes have been corrected in this one. The eyes look way better, which we will see here when I take a closer look. Another one of the issues with the other one was that it did not balance well, and as you can see, this one stands quite well. The feet are a little warped, but not terribly, and they stand much better than the other one did. Definitely no standing issues with this guy. He's pretty sturdy, actually. The articulated jaw is, however, a problem with this guy. As you can see, his jaw just kind of plops back open. It doesn't stay shut. I was able to wedge him shut before. There we go. If you really wedge it shut, you can get it to stay shut, but it doesn't stay shut. If you just give it even a little tap, it comes back down. And when I bought him, as you can see, his jaw is a little crooked. It was actually worse than this. This is what it looks like now that I fixed it a bit. Before it was like really over. But overall, that's not that big of an issue, because like I said, I was able to fix it. You can actually get a little look on the underside at how bowed the jaw was. But as I said, with the little hot water hitting it and then hitting it with some cold water, I was able to form it into a shape that it was able to close, but it doesn't work perfectly. As I said, once you pull it open, it just kind of falls right down. There's no options as far as different lengths of opening it. It just kind of falls, like I said. Another difference between this one and the other one is the other one had arms that you were able to move, which I thought was kind of a cool touch, but this one does not. The arms stay completely still. They do not move whatsoever, but it's not a big deal for me. I don't really mind that. And another thing between the two, if you look here, you can see that the green one, the newer green one anyway, in the back is larger than the older one. There's a prime shot. You can see the newer one is definitely significantly bigger. Not too much, but definitely larger than the other one. The older one is definitely smaller the newer one. But anyway, let's take a nice closer look at this guy. You can see as we start up here at the head, you see the, like I said, the eyes have been corrected. Looking right there at the eye, it looks way better than it did on the other one. This looks like a pretty good painted eye. It's an orange color with a black pupil. So overall, the eye looks much better, in my opinion, on this one than the other one does. This actually has some significant shading done to it. The upper part of the jaw here is a different shade of green than the lower part of the jaw, but this white background, I think, kind of just blurs that out. You can't really tell. I'll take a few pictures outside so you can really get an idea of how the colors change as far as tones and stuff go. Once I use some natural light from the sun, you'll be able to see that a little better. You can see looking at the eye on both sides, this eye is also quite nicely painted. It looks much, much better than the other one does. It's quite impressive to me how well this thing was put together, because I don't really see any type of a seam whatsoever where they could have connected the neck of the Baryonyx to the neck of the Spinosaurus. I don't really know how the whole bootlegging process works, but they did a very, very good job, honestly, on bootlegging this. You can see that the teeth they don't look too bad. I mean, they're a little sloppy, they're kind of meshed together, but they're painted pretty well. There's no sloppiness of the paint all over the body or of the jaws or anything like that, so the teeth were painted pretty nice. You can see the tongue is actually a different color than the rest of the mouth. The tongue is a bright red, which I'm not a big fan of, but it doesn't look terrible actually on this. And you can see that the inside of the mouth is like a purplish type of a color back there. It's really more of like the fleshy type of a color of the inside of a mouth. It looks pretty good actually. It's pretty decently colored, so the mouth as a whole looks pretty good. And you can see that as far as bootlegging this, the detail is actually still quite significant. It really looks pretty nice on this thing. Claws are colored gray. Not really much as far as shading or anything goes on them, but there's a little bit of gloss actually on the claws that help to bring them to life. The body is primarily a green color, but then you can see some little hints of brown put in here and there. And then there's also some reds as far as these little bumps go along the upper part of the back on the tail. It's little red bumps the whole way through, which I'm not too big of a fan of those little red bump areas, but it doesn't really deter from the model too much. It doesn't distract me or anything, but overall I feel like the color scheme and stuff on this is way nicer than the other one, just because of how much more realistic it looks. You can see that the feet have some more of that brown color, and then again the gray claws on the feet, they also have gloss on them. Everything is painted so much better on this one than the other one. As far as sloppiness goes, I don't really see any sloppiness in the paint at all. You can kind of see, it's weird, it's like they took the other one and then just enlarged it a little bit, because you can see where the arms actually were able to move before, and now they're no longer able to move. There's a seam right there. I don't really know what that's about or why that is, but it's interesting that that's there. And then again, beautiful green dry brushing with a lighter green coloration underneath. Looks very, very cool. You can really see the scales on this thing. The scales have been elaborated thanks to that dark green dry brushing that they've done. Honestly, the detail on this is really quite impressive. When they bootleg these things a lot, more often than not, they lose a lot of detail in the bootlegging process, but that's not really the case with this one, in my opinion. It really looks quite good. And the sail, you can see, has a reddish type of a stripe going down the whole length of the sail, and then there's like a green dry brushing, and then a lighter, like orange, red-orange type color along the top area of the sail. These little bumps here, and this kind of a small mini sail up here is also a brownish color on the upper part of the body. So overall, I feel like this one here is a pretty big improvement from the former version. And I will say though that with these bootleg figures, unless you own the originals, I feel like you really probably shouldn't just buy these to replace the originals. But in a situation like this is kind of a different type of a situation, because this isn't an original figure. They took two different figures and combined it to make some crazy off-the-wall Spinosaurus figure. So I don't really see a problem with buying this one personally. Some people have moral issues where they feel like you shouldn't buy any type of a bootleg, because then you're supporting people that are basically scamming these other companies that spend the time to make the sculpts and stuff. And I agree to an extent, because honestly, if you're gonna buy a bootleg, you should definitely buy the original first, so the company that actually spent the money to get the sculpt and everything originally is the one that does make profit off of it, and not just these bootleggers. But with something like this is pretty much a whole new creation that was used thanks to these other companies like Papo to create something new. Now, I don't know for sure if this was completely stolen or if this was just an inspired work, but I would imagine that this is basically the bootleg version of the Spinosaurus, and then they bootlegged the Baryonyx, and then just connected the head somewhere, and they altered a few other things on it to create this thing. And honestly, I like it a lot. Like I said before, not the most scientifically accurate Spinosaurus, but as far as an awesome looking Spinosaurus, this is definitely a good version. As far as the size of him goes, I mentioned this one's a little bigger than the other one. So from the jaw to the tail, you're looking at just about 15 inches long. And then to the top of the sail here, a little tiny bit under 7 inches. So he's definitely a pretty good size. For a size comparison, there is the Papo T-Rex. So you can see that the Spinosaurus is significantly larger than the Papo T-Rex as far as length goes. No matter how you look at him, he's definitely a big Spinosaurus. He could give that T-Rex a run for his money if he wanted to. So another crazy but awesome bootleg figure coming out of China. Something that I think is very, very cool, and there's actually another paint scheme of this on top of this. I don't know as far as sculpt or anything goes if there's anything different because I haven't received him yet, but I have ordered the other version as well, so I'll have him here on the channel probably within the next week or two, I'd imagine, whenever he actually gets here. But this one is definitely very, very cool, and I think he was only about $15 with free shipping, so it's a good price in my opinion for something as big as this, because this is a very, very big figure. He's a solid too. He's not any type of a hollow material. He pretty much feels just like he would be if he was a Papo figure. A very, very solid, pretty heavy figure. Definitely not any type of a cheap feel to this guy. So if you do want to order this Spinosaurus, I will link you guys in the description straight to where I bought him. I bought him from the Aliexpress website. There are a few different sellers selling him, but I will link you guys straight to the guy that I got him from. A much more realistic looking color scheme, a much more naturalistic color scheme than the other one did have, and overall a little bigger. So very, very cool bootleg figure, and I will link you guys, like I said, in the description. And if you want to see the other version of this, definitely subscribe to the channel because I will have that, along with, I'm sure, plenty more bootlegs in the future. So like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next review. Thanks for watching.